Hello everyone. I'd like to do a demo on creating a calendar for this week's assignment. And note that I've been experimenting with some of these and I actually did this incorrectly because you are limited to choosing a famous graphic designer, develop a calendar page for the remainder of the course. So that would be for September and October. Okay, so you need to provide two calendar pages and you need to simulate the style or pick up on the style of the artist. What I did with this, for example, I have Dali, Salvador Dali is known for his, but I included the image, which you cannot do. So you have to somehow get around including an image of the artist's work. Okay, so I want to show you just a few others I've experimented with just to have fun with. And this is Rory Lichtenstein, and then this is another for Salvador Dali. But again, it includes the work. So what I'm going to do is do a demo and show you a variety of techniques to help you build your calendar in InDesign, and also how to work with Photoshop, and we'll see what we can do here. So I'm going to create a new document. So I'm working in the Windows environment, so if I say the Control key, you'll use the Command key if you're in the Mac environment, and use the Option key if I mention the Alt key. Okay, so Control N for new document, and we're going to uncheck facing pages. We don't need an additional facing page. This is not a layout for a magazine or a book. And we're going to make the orientation landscape, and we're going to have no gutter. I essentially want a blank canvas here. No margins, so let me reduce that. However, I do want bleed, so I want to have an eighth of an inch bleed all around the document. A quarter of an inch would be 0.25, so an eighth of an inch would be half of that. So since I'm a little lazy on that, so this would be, let's see here. So you have a quarter here, and then 0.625 would be an eighth of an inch. So I'm going to highlight that and copy that, and then make the margin 0, and then paste that into the bleed area. Okay, and then as soon as I hit tab, it will populate the rest of the cells here. So then I'll hit OK, and notice that you see a preview. If you check this box here, you'll see a preview of your document. So I'll hit OK. So now we have a blank canvas to work with. So now the first step is, what we're going to do is create a table here. So we're going to select the text tool and click and drag to create a text box that fills the entire page. All right, from the upper left to the lower right. All right, so I have my text box here, and I'm going to go to Table, Insert Table. All right, and what I want is to have a total of 7 rows and 7 columns. So this would include a top area for the month. The second row would include the days of the week, and then the balance would include the days of the month. So I'll hit OK to that. So we have our table set up here. And what I'm going to do is now go up here with my text tool, and if I hover above that bottom first line, you'll see that up and down double arrowhead. I'll click and drag down and allow for a space up top for the name of the month here. The second row will have the days of the week, so I'll click and drag that down to expand that. Okay, so that should be enough space there. You can always edit this later on. Now I'm going to take the bottom row of the table, the bottom horizontal line, and click and drag this all the way down to the bottom. Okay? Then the next step is to go to the third row and click and drag and highlight all of these cells here. Then I'm going to right click and distribute the rows evenly, not the columns but the rows. Okay, so there we go. So we have our setup here. So this first row here will be name of the month, the second row will be the name of the days of the week, and the balance of the rows and columns will be the days of the month. So I'm going to go back to my text tool and highlight the top row, right click and merge those cells. Okay, so we have that as an end result. Then what I'm going to do is edit this stroke wise, and what I'm going to do is select, I'm going to go to my text tool, and highlight all of these cells here. I will right click and select Cell Options, Strokes and Fills. So I'm going to pick up on the style of Roy Lichtenstein. So actually, let me just cancel out of this and go back to Photoshop and show you some of his work. Okay, so he's part of the pop art culture, so he's into the comic book look. All right, so I have all these elements here that I've chosen just so I pick up some of the graphic style that he has, which is a dot pattern. Okay, he's very big on the dot pattern, which is essentially a comic book, visual of a comic book. If you zoom in, you'll see this halftone pattern. So back in InDesign, I will right-click and go to Cell Options and go to Strokes and Fills. I want to determine the weight and color of all of these strokes. Okay, so I'll go up to, I'm going to make this very thick. I'll make this 5 points. I will choose a bright red color. And from the type drop down, I'm going to choose a dotted pattern. All right, you could choose Japanese dots also, but actually let me choose Japanese dots. All right, they're closer together. So I'm seeing a preview here, and I want to make these a little larger, so I'll go up to maybe 7 points. Okay. So the gap color will show the color of the gap in between each of these dots on the strokes. So the default is the paper color, which is white. I can choose another color. So I'll just to show you, I'll choose a bright yellow. Okay, and I'm going to not choose any cell fill colors. Okay, so I'll hit OK and look at the end result. So that's our pattern. So note that it changed. You know, somehow this bounced in here, and if you'll notice this plus sign, it means that there's a hidden area, a hidden row that you cannot see. So what you need to do is right-click and select Fitting and Fit Frame to Content. Okay, so it fit the interior artwork to the frame. So now, if you look closely, however, it's extending outside into the bleed area. Okay, that red line on the outside represents the bleed. Bleed is if you have any artwork on the document, it will expand out beyond that. It's considered waste, so that when the document is printed, there's no white line at the edge, just in case there's a shift in the printing process. What we'll need to do is do a little creative fudging here. So select it first, of course, and then I'm going to scale this down just a little bit so that it fits in. So it scales into the upper left-hand corner. If I make this 99% and hit enter, okay, notice what happened. It scaled in from the right and up from the left. So it now fits in there pretty good. I may want to increment it over using my arrow key just to nudge it, and there we go. All right, so we are good now. Now the next step is to work with text. So what I'm going to do is go to my text tool, and I will type in the days of the week. So Monday, hit tab, it'll bounce over to the next cell. Tuesday, tab. Wednesday, tab, and so on. So I actually changed it around. I have Sundays being in the first column here. That's what it should be. So now what I'll do is take my text tool, select the entire row, and then center my text. So I'll go to the center horizontally and then center it within the text box. So there we go. All right, so now as far as fonts. Now I've looked at fonts and I've chosen fonts that have a pop art look. I actually went to dafont.com and downloaded some fonts. I have one that's called Mickey. So I'll just type in the first 3 letters up here and it goes right to Mickey, and I'll select that. I want to scale this up, so right now it's 11 points. Let me just see if I can scale this up. Let me just increment this up a little bit at a time by clicking the up arrow key, and I want this to be nice and bright and bold, and that looks pretty good. Okay. Now the next step is to do this. you want to put the actual dates in the corresponding location. So for September, the first would start on a Thursday. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a little bit more flexibility with regards to placing the numbers. So I'm going to go to my layers panel. This little shortcut is F7. Okay, and I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this numbers. Okay, I'm going to lock the table, go to the numbers, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to create, let me hit F7 to take advantage of my screen real estate. Go to my text tool, and I'm going to create a text block that will encompass this area here. Okay, so I'm on a separate layer. I have a new text block, and I'm going to create a new table. Insert table. This time I want to have 5 rows. Okay, and then I will go to my bottom line here, expand this down to the base, and then highlight all of those rows and columns, right click, and distribute rows evenly. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see, but if I go back into my panel, my layers panel, hide the table, I'll see now that I have a separate table here. So I'm going to select Thursday, right? Let me just make sure. So this is Thursday. I'm going to type in 1. I'll hit tab, type in 2. Tab 3, tab 4, tab 5, tab 6, tab 7, tab 8, tab 9, and so on. So I have all of my days of the week in here. I will then highlight all of those numbers on that table, and I'll choose a font. I'm simply going to go to my drop-down menu, and let's see, I have a font I placed in here called Action Comics. So I'm going to choose the black one. Okay. I can also increase the size if I want them really big, but we'll leave that as is. Okay, so there we go. So now if you want to see this without all the guidelines, just hit the letter W. So that kind of hides all those guidelines, and note that my table here has a black line on it. Okay, so we don't want that. So I have to highlight that using the text tool, because that's how you get to the editing area of the table. So now I will right click, go to cell options, strokes and fills, and then for the fill you want no color, so none, either no color or 0 weight, and then hit OK. And then if I deselect, you'll note that that black line is gone. Okay. All right, so the next step is, so you want, obviously you want the day of the week, the day of the name of the month. So now you have the basics down, so now you have to get a little bit creative here. So I'm going to go to my text tool, highlight all of these cells here, and I'm going to go to my cell options for the strokes and fills, and I'm going to select a color for the background. So I'm going to choose a blue. I'm going to go with some bright colors here, and I'm also going to make the tint. I'm going to change the tint to maybe 20%, and I'll hit OK. All right. So then if I deselect, I note that. Okay. So note that it's covering up everything. So all I need to do is change the stacking order of the layers, and so this way the blue is behind, and I am good to go. For the table, I'm going to create an effect. So object, effects, drop shadow. Okay, so you get the drop shadow window come up. As long as preview is checked, you can see the end result. And you know, you can play around with that. You can change the angle of the shadow, but I kind of like how that looks. So I will hit OK to that, and you've got a drop shadow there. So I'm going to go over to Illustrator and create a dot pattern. So I first want to kind of, you know, note the size that I need so I can approximate it visually. So let's just say I wanted to fill a dot pattern in the upper area here. I have an 11-inch width, and I have, if I look at my rulers here, 1 3/8 high. So if I go to Illustrator, I created this pattern before. I'll show you how to do that. So I'll create a new document, and I will change the units to inches, and I can approximate this. So 11 inches, so 3/8. That would be, all right, so I'll hit OK to that. And then what I'll do is create a pattern. I will go to my ellipse tool. And I'll zoom in a little bit. Spacebar control helps you zoom in. Spacebar allows you to reposition. I'll go into the upper left-hand corner here and click and drag and create a circle. So as I'm dragging, I'm holding on the Shift key to create a perfect, to constrain the proportions of the ellipse to make it a circle. Letting go with my mouse first. Okay, so right now it's showing as a white fill with a black stroke. I'll bring the stroke forward and click None, and bring the fill forward and select, double click on the fill color, and I'll select a red. All right, so I have a red circle, and now what I'm going to do is zoom in again. Go to my showing as a white fill with a black stroke. I'll bring the stroke forward and click None, and bring the fill forward and select, double click on the fill color, and I'll select a red. All right, so I have a red circle, and now what I'm going to do is zoom in again. Go to my selection tool, click and start dragging, whoops, right in the middle here, right? You may have to zoom into this. I just want to essentially click and drag. As I'm sliding, I'm holding in the Shift key to constrain it to a horizontal slide, and the Alt key to duplicate the circle. Okay, so I'll go right to about there, letting go with my mouse first. So I have a duplicated circle that's in a perfectly horizontal slide. And then what I'll do is I'll duplicate that. So let me just hit Control 0 to fit it in the window, and then Control D, 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 D. And I'm holding down the D key till I get all the way down to the end. All right, let me hide my tools here. And then I'm going to select all, Control A. We zoom in, whoops, and then move that entire row down. So I'll click, start dragging, holding down the Shift key to constrain to a vertical slide, and the Alt key will duplicate that row. And then I'm letting go with my mouse first, and then hitting Control 0 so I can see where I'm going to end, and then hit Control D, D, D to transform again or duplicate that row of bullets. All right, I'll now select all and just use my arrow key to just increment up a little bit. Okay, so there we go. All right, so what we could do is this. I could also put a color in the background. So if I bring up my tools again, and then rectangle tool, create an entire rectangle, fill that with another color. I'll double click on that. I don't know, I'm just going to choose any random color here. I'll choose a light blue and hit OK. And then right click and arrange and send that to the back. Okay, I've now got that rectangular light blue text box behind all the circles. I can do one of two things. Actually, what I'll do is I'll save this document. So I will save this, and I'll call this new pattern, and hit save, and hit OK. Back in InDesign, I will go to my rectangular frame tool, and I want to make sure that I'm in the right, I'm going to create, I like creating separate layers. It gives me a little more control. So on this new layer that's underneath the table layer, I will create a rectangular box here, and then I will go to File, Place, and go to my new pattern, right here, and I'll double click on that to place that, and there we go. All right, looks pretty bad, but what we can do is we can lower the transparency of that. Okay, makes it look even worse. But all right, I'm just showing you techniques now, and so now this is where you'd have your text here. So you want to first of all note that I'm placing a file here. So if I sent this InDesign document to someone, unless I correctly link this file here or sent along this separate Illustrator document, there would be a missing file here. So what you need to do is go to the links area here and notice that there's a new pattern here. That's my Illustrator file. You need to right click on that and embed the link. Okay, so now it's embedded, and now the person on the other end who sees this in design document will be able to see that pattern. Okay, so now I want to pick up on other design elements. So for example, what I could do is this. In Photoshop, I found this I picked up on, these bubble elements for where these girls are speaking and thinking. So I have this speech bubble here, and what I need to do is cut this out because this has a white background. It's a JPEG file. So here's how I'm going to do that in Photoshop. I'm going to go to my magic wand tool, select the background, okay, inverse it, Shift F7, so I have a selection that's around this speech bubble. And then I'm going to go to my Paths panel and click on the upper right hand corner and select Make Work Path, and I'll just accept the default of a tolerance of 2. So now I have a path that encompasses this speech bubble. Okay, you need to save the path, so I'm going to double click on the work path and just hit OK. So now it's essentially a saved path. Okay, and InDesign will recognize this as a clipping path essentially. I know there's other methods of bringing in EPSs, but this is how I'm doing it here. So now I also want to be concerned about the size. So I note that back in InDesign, I have an area up here that's, let's say, 1.5 inches high. Okay, and I'm not sure this is going to work out, but this is a thought I have. So back in Photoshop, I'm going to scale this out here. So rather scale this down. So image size, I want to make sure it's high resolution, so I unchecked resample, because right now it's 72 pixels per inch. This is a 22-inch wide document. So if I uncheck resample, I'm going to do a resampling of this file here. I want to make this 300 pixels per inch. Okay. So note that anything that gets printed has to be high resolution for best quality. High resolution is considered 300 pixels per inch. That's the standard. If it's for the web, it would be 72 pixels per inch. So at this resolution, there is a trade of resolution for physical size. So now it's a little bit more than 5 inches wide. Okay, I'm going to go back in and recheck, resample, and I'm going to make the height, I'll make it 2 inches. Okay, this way I can scale it down a little bit, but it'll be close. All right, I'll hit OK. So I'm going to save this as a PSD file. Okay, you can save it also as an EPS. I actually think that's the preferred way. So this is a EPS file. I'm sorry, a PSD file. All right, has your path around it, and that will mean it will mask out, after making it a clipping path, the background of this image here. So back in InDesign, I will go to File, Place, look for my saved speech bubble PSD file, click on that, and we now have a speech bubble that I will, let's just say there's something due on Thursday. Okay, I want to also, first of all, mask out the background. So I need to make sure it's selected. I'll go to Object, Clipping Path, Options, and then from this Type drop-down menu, I'll select Photoshop Path and hit OK. So you'll note that it now masked out the background, and now what we'll do is I'll reposition this where I want it. Let's just say it has something due on the 7th. Okay, it's obviously too large, so I will scale this down to about here. Right click, fit content to frame. Okay, and now what you can do is you can type in what's due on that date. Okay, so that's a thought. I'm just showing you a process for doing several things. I'm not, it's not my job to show you how to design this. You kind of have to do your own thing, but I want to show you an assortment of techniques, especially that table. I'm going to also, create another new layer, and I'm going to go to my text tool and create the name of the month. So we'll make that really big for now so we can see what's going on. So I'll choose mini. I have this as a font choice also, which I like. So there we go. I know this was a very long demo, but I hope this helped. All right, and I'll continue to do demos, but I'll be throwing my 2 cents in from time to time. All right, I hope that helped. Take care, guys. Bye.